Dun, dun, dun. Okay, Jaime, can you request to join?
I will.
Guest request is on.
All right, so let me just check one thing.
Yeah, you should be able to. There we go. Hey, Chelsea. Yes, Chelsea here said I can bring Chelsea on because it says bring them on camera. Chelsea, I'm not going to bring you on camera just so you know.
YouTube is on.
What's that, Jaime?
YouTube is on.
All right.
So you're good there.
Let me know whenever you come onto the live, Jaime, so that I can get you added onto the.
I'm on live.
You're on the live?
Yeah.
Okay, so why is it not allowing me to bring you on here? Can you comment, Jaime, and see what it does?
Of course.
I find it really interesting sometimes whenever you do these lives that allows some people to automatically, it says bring them on camera, and then some people it doesn't. And so I'm not quite sure. Jaime, do you have your phone horizontal, by the way?
Do I have what?
Your phone. Okay, there you go. Gotcha. I'm adding you now.
Of course I have to do that.
Yeah, make sure your phone's horizontal. Dun, 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 dun. What's up, Peggy? Approve. Let's see. Jaime, request. Let's see. Did we get you this time? It says adding you now. Connecting. All right. I'm muting my Zoom side.
All right. I have the Zoom muted as well. So that means
we're good to go.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine.
Great.
All right. Can everybody hear us okay? Can everybody see us okay? Please let us know, and we will start this call. By the way, my face looks huge on this thing. I'm not used, Jaime, to having the camera this close to my face, but it works. Again, if you're watching, give us a thumbs up or heart to let us know that you can hear us just fine and that you can see both Jaime and I. And we'll go ahead and start the call and the discussion now. And please feel free if you have any questions, any comments, anything that you want to discuss beyond what we're going to talk about. Please feel free to interrupt us, ask questions, add your own input. So what we're talking about today is the perfect real estate team. It's not what you think it is. And Jaime, I'll let you introduce yourself and where you're located.
Hello, everybody. So I hear a lag. Do you hear a lag?
I don't hear lag on my end.
Okay, that's fine. Well, we're going to keep going. My name is Jaime Resendez. So we are at the Agents Lead Source podcast. We are trying a new way of doing this. We had to let producer Pat go. So it's been upon us to get this going. Yeah, how do you feel about the firing, Joseph?
You know, sometimes you got to do things yourself. Take matters into your own hands. So I think we'll make do with what we have to, right? We've been doing that anyway, running our own businesses. So those of you who don't know me, I'm Joseph Gonzalez. I run a real estate marketing company. I used to sell real estate in Austin and then moved to Singapore with my family. So I'm here in Singapore. It is 9:27 in the morning. Jaime, it is 8:27 p.m. in your Central Standard Texas time. Is that correct?
It is.
So coming from you from around the world, literally, and having this podcast. So let's jump into the content, Jaime. Again, we're talking about the perfect real estate team. It's not what you think it is. Jaime, do you want to kind of jump into that a bit and we'll start the discussion from there?
Absolutely. So we have, we were talking about this topic for a while in preparation for this podcast. This was something we talked about last week, and it was something that we really wanted to cover in many different aspects. So we ended up selecting two primary aspects. The first one being the transaction team. And we'll get into what that means here in a little bit, but also about the traditional real estate team that we commonly hear about. which is something that's very requested and very needed. So from the transaction team, I'll kick that off, Joseph, if that's okay. The transaction team, what we mean is the team that you need to get a transaction done. Now, you may be thinking, well, Jaime, what does that mean, a team? Because really being a real estate agent is a party of one most of the time. And what we mean by a team is when you get started in the real estate, very early on, you need a team. You need somebody that you can trust to help you close business. And right off the bat, I want to introduce the primary person that needs to be on your team, and that's a lender. Mm-hmm. Getting a lender that's going to really work for you and with you, most importantly, not necessarily work for you, is the difference between closing a sale or not closing a sale. It's that important because we've all had the lead that may be a little bit more challenging to work with when it comes to getting an approval. And if you send that over to a lender that's just not going to work with you, then guess what? You don't have a sale. So Correct. What do you think about that one, Joseph?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lender is very imperative, not only with the idea of them making sure that they help you close a deal, but the idea that they help you do marketing as well, right? Like whenever we have clients, we often tell them, hey, why don't you partner with a lender? Because the lender is going to help you cover some of your costs, right? Following RESPA laws and all those things, RESPA rules, your state rules and your board rules. But so a lender is imperative because they help you kick off your business, one. Two, they help you close business. Now, depending on the lender that you have, some of them will be really good in helping you with clients that are on the bubble. Some of them will be like, you know what, I'm such a big baller now in my Maserati that I don't need to work with everybody. So you have to be very selective. And to be honest with you, I think if you don't have a like rock star lender that does everything you need them to do, have multiple, right? I don't think there's a problem with having multiple lenders on your team, your quote unquote team, right? As a business owner to move business along. So that's my opinion, Jaime, on, I think a lender is definitely one of the first people that you're going to get on your team. Today's market might be a little bit different because they're doing a lot of refis, and it's a little bit harder to get some of them on your team because again, they're fat and happy and driving their Maseratis right now. But very soon when these refis dry up, they're going to be looking for you and sending you donuts and coffee again. Right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So when it comes to a lender, what was your process for finding a lender, Joseph? Did you have a mentor when you joined your real estate brokerage the first time? Was it like a mentor? Was it your broker that said, hey, absolutely call Jake, Julie, Judy, whoever it was? How did you find your lender?
Yeah, so I think I went about it a little bit differently because I started as a marketer and helped the brokerage first, right? The brokerage had a ton of lending partners. For me, anytime I'm selecting a partner, it's all about the feel of the person, not necessarily how good they are at the business, because if they're a good person, they're typically going to be really good at their business. So anyway, he had multiple lenders that I actually met with and talked about marketing with, and then ultimately selected 3 or 4 different lenders that I could send files to say, hey, what can you do with this, right? And whoever gave us the best transaction deal and whoever had the best process, that's how I selected. Now, it may be different for a new agent, right? Going out and finding a lender. Like, hey, who is the person you feel most comfortable with? Who, if you give them a transaction, they're going to push that file through or tell you what's going on with it so you don't have to worry about it, right? Keeping you up to date. So Jaime, I think my story might be a little bit different. I don't know. How was your story in finding a lender?
Really, it was a friend of mine that introduced me to real estating. Actually, I just exited my previous career, and I had some downtime of really what I wanted to do for my next move, where I wanted to invest the next several years. And it was actually my my realtor that helped me buy and helped me sell my house. They introduced the real estate aspect of it. I'd already been geared towards it, but that's kind of where it came from. And really, it was that person that whenever I needed to contact the title company, the lender, the inspector, I kind of just very much like the buyer when you use the realtor's advice. I very much did the same thing from a realtor standpoint and used their contact. So that's kind of my journey of absorbing somebody's already proven, I guess, contacts and network and team. I kind of absorbed them to mine. And then slowly I started, getting my own my own team, one that I worked with a little bit better, one that understood kind of where I was wanting to take what I wanted to do. That was my journey on finding the lender.
Awesome. And those of you who are watching, how did you find your lender? Right? Is that the first person you found as part of your team? Right? We want to know in the comments. Comment and let us know, because everybody has a different process, and Jaime's process is obviously different than my process. So, how did you find your lenders or group of lenders? And do you think that's one of the first people you should have? And which now will lead into some of the next things. Jaime, I guess we'll let you take that away on the next part of the team, if you will, in growing your real estate business.
Right. So what we're talking about right now is the transaction team. So as you become an agent and you need to assemble a team, somebody that you want to work with repeatedly again and again, is for that consistency and to be able to scale a little bit faster. So the next member that we want to cover is the title company. Mm-hmm. So the title company they're not all cut the same. You may think that they are, that a title company is a title company is a title company. That is not true. That is far from the truth. Now, we have some bigger title companies out there that are super national, and you may think that they all operate the same, but that's not the case. Now, just giving you an example of that case, I had a very specific problem with the title, if you will. And I went to 12 different companies, not just branches, 12 different title companies that would not bind that title, that would not issue that title policy. And it wasn't until I found one in Irving, that's as far as I'm going to go. We're not going to go into which one it was until we get that sponsorship money. But it wasn't until I went to the one in Irving. It was it's fairly large. If you did some digging around, you'd probably be able to find it. They're the ones that closed it, and they're the ones that closed it within 7 days. So they are a big difference between being able to collect or not being able to collect, or essentially having a deal go sour.
Yeah, so that's interesting, right? Like you had to go find you had to go through so many title companies just to find the right one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That was crazy. That was eye-opening.
Yeah. And once you find the right one, you're like, I'm always going to go to their office. Right. Not just because they have Snickers and cookies, but because they actually help you close the deal. Same for me. Right. Like, so I was fortunate whenever I worked with Remax, which is now Pure Realty out of Austin area, out of Cedar Park. They had first, I think I was going with the company that starts with the S. Everybody, I think, mainly knows that company in Texas. It's kind of maroonish color. And they started kind of lagging behind in their files and their process. And then this other company, which I almost want to mention the name because they're so good, they happened to be next door, and they partnered with our office. And one of the ladies there, I actually mentioned her. She's actually become a great fan of mine. Her name is Leah. And Leah actually, I mean, dude, if I ever need anything, I could call her, I could text her, I could shoot her an email. I would have a response back so fast, and things just got done. Like I didn't ever have to worry about it. Right. So whenever you have that type of relationship with a title company, or if I needed something printed, they took care of it. Right. And that's the type of title company you want to have, that can take care of whatever you need them to take care of. And you don't have to go to 12 different people. And once you do go to that 12th one and they do the deal, you're like, I'm always going to give them my business. Right. There's no question about it. We have people commenting about finding their lender, Jaime, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the title company. So Holly here says hers is a good friend of mine that helped her teach her the steps along the way on her side. So her person was actually a good friend of hers already, which is really neat. Monica has one that was recommended to her by her brokerage, but she hasn't done a deal with her yet. So I just asked her if she has done a deal with a different lender. Right, that's always a case sometimes, not always the case. That's the case sometimes where you will have a lender that's recommended, but you might not do a deal with them for a while, or maybe it's just not the right fit, even though they're recommended by your brokerage. Yeah. And then Vaughn Shannon here, who does new construction, one of our favorite things, says trial and error for lender, trust and service are key over 1/8 better rate. It takes a while, but worth the work. So yeah, I think that's a good point. Trial and error for sure. I think same thing for title. I think a lot of these things that we're going to talk about, I think it's going to be trial and error, right? Like you're going to take some bumps along the way to find the person you want. And then once you find that person, you're like, I'm never letting you go. Don't quit the business, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. So next thing, Jaime, you want to jump into the next person that I think we touched on this person before, this job before in another show, but I think it's good to talk about it again.
Yeah. Yeah. So the next one's going to be the inspector. Now the inspector is somebody, again, this is and the reason we're gonna go, these are the first three examples that we're gonna go through. Then we're going to go a little bit faster before we go over to the other type of team that we really want to cover at length, which is joining a real estate team. So what we're covering right now is the transaction team. And the one that we really want to highlight right now is the inspector as part of your team, because we know that, especially now, houses are going under contract very quickly. And there's been a lot of people that actually waive the inspection. Now that's a measured risk that you would have to take in your market, depending on what it's doing. But more often than not, if you're not able to forego the inspection, then you're going to put a couple of days. You're not going to put a 7. You're certainly not going to put a 10-day inspection. So you want to make sure that you have either an inspector or a list of inspectors that you can count on. So you know that they're going to be available on that Sunday inspection. You know that they're going to be available for the Saturday evening inspection. So you don't lose some precious days in negotiating. Again, now more than ever, you want to make sure that you have somebody that is going to pick up the phone and will actually get into the property as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. The inspector is really a really interesting person, right? Whenever you talk about an inspector, I like inspectors who really break down the file, and like, I know they can't legally say like, here are the things you really need to worry about. Don't worry about all this other stuff on here. These are minor things that you can take care of yourself. Specifically for new buyers, right? Yeah. They're like, is this a new buyer or is this a seasoned buyer, right? An inspector who knows the difference so that they can tell you, hey, Joseph, if this is a new buyer, they're going to be freaking out about these little items. Here, go ahead and highlight these things. You don't have to say, I told you, but just say, hey, generally an inspector says this. These are the things that you should be requesting. Because we know that sometimes a new buyer will be like, here's a list of things that I want to put on the addendum for them to fix, right? So a good inspector, I think, one, like you said, will be in the house as soon as possible, especially in today's market. Two, is going to be able to explain things in a way that help you explain it to your buyer a little bit better, or in some cases your seller, whenever you get that list of things that need to be fixed.
Right. No, it's super important. Again, more than anything right now with the market the way that it is incredibly important. So Joseph, how about I hit the other 3 just real quick, and then we migrate over to the real estate team. I think really that's where a lot of the benefit, a lot of the questions came from whenever we were going through the notes today.
Okay.
So the 3 others that we wanted to highlight, again, this is being part of your transaction team. If you're a newer agent, or even if you're a seasoned agent, the reason you want to have a team together, somebody that you can really count on, is so you can have that peace of mind that things are going to get done. Ideally, you got into real estate to scale, to grow, and to have a larger business than you did last year. But that's not possible if you have to babysit the inspector, if you have to babysit the loan officer, if you have to do the loan officer's job, the title company's phone calls. That's just not going to work. That's not how you level up. So the other ones that we put down here is you want to have a go-to home warranty company. Now, not all buyers will have a home warranty company, so we understand that. You want to have a go-to stager. You want to make sure that you make it as easy as possible for the seller to say yes on the, hey, do you want to have this property? Do you want to have this property staged? Because chances are that it's going to sell much quicker and for more money. So to make that pitch a little bit easier to stomach, so you don't have to sell it for them. And then the last one is now I guess this became more into vogue in the past several years, is a utility concierge. So somebody that does the work for your buyer, that goes and looks for the utilities, goes and looks for the internet providers, goes and looks for different companies and price shops, so your buyer can have that off of their plate. All they have to do is say, I want this internet provider, I want this television or internet provider, and I want this, and then they're done with it. So those are 3 others that we wanted to highlight.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think those are pretty noteworthy things to discuss for sure, right? Buyer seller side of the contracts, and I think those people just make your life easy, right? At the end of the day, your team, specifically your transaction team, should be making your life easy and taking time away from the transaction that you would normally have to put into it, right? So
Yep.
I think it's great job covering those items specifically. We got some people commenting, Jaime. Before we move on to contacts, do we want to talk? We want to go over some of these
Let's
comments that are going on here?
Let's do it.
So Holly commented here, just had a deal fall through because of the inspection. So again, having a good inspector. The buyers basically thought they could get a brand new house on a 30-year-old house, even offered repairs, GFI, hand rails, etc. And the buyer said no. So I think this is a good example, Holly, and Holly commented more here. I think it's a good example of having unrealistic buyers sometimes, right? We as the professionals, the real estate agents, we have to set expectations. And Holly, I'm not saying that you didn't, right? But that was kind of like my bread and butter, new construction and new home buyers, right? And the expectation, I would always tell them, hey, look, if you're going to buy a resale house, just know there are going to be things that have to be fixed, and not everything can be fixed by the seller, right? If so, then you just go buy a new house, right? So there's that conversation that needs to happen. But again, sometimes you just have unrealistic buyers. So that's what Holly was saying. She lost the deal because the buyers wanted a new house, but they were buying a 30-year-old house. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Right? The math doesn't add up.
The math does not add up. Let's see, who else? I think, so Holly commented there. Holly continued the conversation. They even put in a pick me letter and were picked. So even though, Holly, like, even sometimes, like, people will do unrealistic things just to want the house, but that doesn't mean they're going to move through the contract, right? And it's kind of crazy sometimes. Jenny says, in this market, those that walk away after multiple offer wins really should rethink it unless the house is falling apart. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with you. And then Vaughn says, correct. By the way, Jenny Holmes also commented, I had one mortgage broker before the pandemic, but he lost many of the products my clients utilize. So I started asking around, paid attention to those providing value and mom groups. I'm in on the Facebook and chose one. I asked her questions, sent her a deal, and ran with her from there. We are closing deals like crazy. I think that goes back to Vaughn's statement, which was trial and error, right? Like, you're going to have some lenders that are mortgage professionals that are just, they crush it, but they may not be the perfect person for the relationship that you're trying to get. I mean, you having trouble? You're giving everybody vertigo.
Oh, you noticed?
You on a roller coaster?
This is how professional we are, man. I am.
Your
I got tired
dying.
of split screening.
Yeah.
This isn't gonna work.
You're gonna have to go handheld.
Yeah. So I don't want to split time, not split time. I don't want to, because I was noticing that I was looking over here and looking over here, and it just wasn't working. So out of respect for the audience, I wanted to correct it.
All good.
So we're gonna do this. It's gonna happen.
Jessica Campanella said, haha, she gave LOL, Jaime. Everybody was doing this.
I'm the YouTuber, right? I'm the YouTube guy. All right, this is gonna work.
Okay, so Vaughn says, even with new home sales, my team just allows me to focus on the next buyer, knowing that my backlog is being taken care of without babysitting. That's it, man. Like, whenever you talk about transaction team, that's what they're supposed to do for you. Allow you just to move. Not that you want to leave your past buyers, like you're going to follow up with them, do the things that you need to, but you don't have to, like, think about the bad stuff that's going to happen. You only worry about the good stuff in the transaction moving forward, which I think is a fantastic situation to be in. New sales, as a as a on-site or a manager of new construction, or as a real estate agent professional, that's going out there and actually selling houses. Have a team that's going to back you and take care of things.
Absolutely.
All right. Want to move on to contacts now?
Let's go into the real estate team. On that, let's just jump right into it. Just dive into the deep end with that one, if you're okay.
I've been looking forward to talking about real estate teams since you sent me the message. So I've got opinions, as people know. I've got my own opinions.
So just to frame that a little bit more, we've a little bit of inside baseball. We spoke about this particular part of the podcast for a little while. We debated, should we really include it? Should we not include it? Do we want to go in on it? Do we not want to go in on it? At the end of the day, given the topic, given the title, most importantly, of the podcast, we felt it prudent to address it. We just migrated outside of the real estate transaction team. So that's what you need to do transactions and grow at scale. But now what we're going to transition into is the real estate teams. As we know, there's a lot of teams out there. There's a brokerage out there that really popularized the team aspect of it. So without judging people that join or don't join a real estate team, we just wanted to talk about it in the sense of what we feel you should be getting when you join a real estate team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would that be a fair assessment of kind of where we want to approach it from, Joseph?
Yeah, I think so, Jaime. I think if you joined a team, you're an idiot. I think if you didn't join a team, you're an idiot, right? I just want to get that out of the way, because no matter whatever side you're on of not joining a team or joining a team, people are going to call you an idiot, right? Like they're gonna trash you. I don't believe that. That was a joke for those of you who don't know my humor.
I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, oh, I just nodded. I was like, oh no.
I think either way, right? It just depends on who you are and what market you're in and how you feel about things and what your knowledge is in real estate. There's no true right answer for every person, whether you join a team or don't join a team. By the way, as we go into this, please comment if you joined a team when you started or if you decided not to join a team when you started, because we'd like to know, and also why you decided one or the other. Again, we're not judging you. That's not our place to do that. We're just going to talk about, like Jaime said, the things that you should hopefully be expecting to receive if you do join a team. Yeah. So Jaime, if you'd like to jump in.
No, absolutely. So I'm glad that you ran everybody off with that. Yeah, the real estate team. So at bare minimum, your team leader, we'll just go ahead and start right there. The team leader is really the one that's going to pitch you. You can think of them as basically another broker. You can think of them that way. Of course, that's not what they're going to end up being, but they're the ones that need to articulate to you the value and the difference that they plan to provide you if you go with them. Because at the end of the day, you're already paying to Caesar what's due to Caesar with the broker, right? So to be doing real estate, you do need to hang your license with a broker. So you already have whatever the commission split is, whatever the arrangement is. If you have a transaction fee, whatever the case may be, there's going to be another piece of the pie that gets taken. Mm-hmm. And right off the bat, regardless of what it is, they need to be able to articulate the value proposition, what they have for you. If that means some additional high-level training that is absolutely valuable, not just them sending you a link to a YouTube video of some other coach teaching you how to sell, they need to be able to articulate that. If they are legitimately going to give you leads for you to close, they need to be able to prove that to you in some capacity. So when I say that they're actually going to give you leads, we all know that maybe we don't all know that. Just a little bit of a heads up for the newer agents out there. If you get promised leads, most brokerages, their definition of giving you leads is to give you phone time. So that means that you're going to sit in the office and you're going to field all the phone calls that are coming into that general office line, and anybody that's unrepresented is a go for you. That's generally what giving you leads means. So if your broker is able to legitimately give you those additional leads, then I would consider that at least a step in the right direction.
Got it. Yeah, I think some places call it floor time, right? So I think one of the companies, the Inns and Banker, has very much popularized that. They're more old school, and not that it's wrong. I think because there's some people that built their business off of that, probably in the '90s, early 2000s. But you definitely, if somebody's going to promise leads, as Jaime said, you want them to define what that means, right? Because if there's not a definition of, hey, I'm going to this broker or this team because they're going to give me leads, some people will get there and they're only going to go be getting lease leads, right? So you want your team leader, your future team leader, or possible team leader to define what getting leads looks like. And if they're not able to define that, that's not a good thing, because that means they're not able to track to give you definition of their own business, right? And what they're giving to everybody else. So I'll go ahead. We have some people that are commenting. Let's see. Jason seems to be a very big proponent of teams here, which is perfectly fine, right? Jason says, my entire team calls the exact lead pool with the new agents. Jason, we'll have you define that a little bit more, what you mean by that. Holly says she joined the team. It was a boutique firm, right? Again, it depends on the size of the team that you're going to be joining. And right now we're doing a palm reading for Jaime. Jaime, your future looks bright. So Holly also says, I think so. We asked to be co-lister on 2 small listings and was given a lead for my first week, which closed on their house month in. So basically Holly's experience with the team has been fantastic, right? Because she got her name, got the co-list on 2 transactions, and then got a lead that's closing for the first lead that she got is closing, right? Is actually a closed transaction or a closing transaction. So that's fantastic. So that's great experience with the team. There are going to be other people that are watching. They may have different experiences. So it'll be interesting. Jason also said the same leads that make us all 6 figures, the new agents literally get access to. Full disclosure, I am not recruiting, just saying join the team. Awesome, Jason. Thank you for sharing that information, right? So there's 2 people right here that are big proponents of teams. I think let's jump into, Jaime, as we talk about this team scenario. Let's talk about, you already generally talked about the amount of pie that's taken. Let's talk about how much is taken, right? And what that could possibly look like and should look like. And Jason, if you want to comment as well, we'll obviously dive deeper into that with you as a team leader. But let's talk about those numbers, Jaime. Do you want to jump into what you've seen, and I'll tell you, and then after you go, I'll tell you what I've seen as well, because I've seen crazy stuff too.
So from the team standpoint, not even factoring in the broker can be, the 70-30, can be 80-20, can be 60-40, whatever the case may be. That's the broker standpoint. When it comes to the team, I've seen as little as 5%. I've seen 10%. Most commonly 20%. That's the most common that I've seen.
Are you saying that the team leader is taking that? Or are you saying that? Okay, got it.
The team leader. So I'm not even factoring in the broker. So
sure,
that is, let's just call it 70-30 is what the broker is getting. So that means 30 for the broker, 70 for the agent. So from what's left over, that 70, the most common one that I've seen is 20%. The most common. Now I have seen 30. I've seen up to 35. I don't think I've seen a 40 from the team person, like consistently, but 20 is the most common that I've seen. What have you seen in your experience, Joseph?
From being in this new real estate agents group for as long as I've been in it, I've seen people that only take 25% of the entire deal home, right? So that means
what?
That means the broker and the team lead or the team are taking 75% of the transaction, right? And then the agent is only taking 25%. Now I have to put context to that, right? So that being said, if the team is doing over 300 or 400 transactions a year, that might be worth it to some agents, right? But if they're only doing, like the team itself is only doing like 50 or 100 transactions, there's no way that could be worth it, right? So you just have to, as an agent, you just have to think about percentages and how much you should be taking home, how much you want to be taking home. A lot of the cases, taking home 50-50 will be good if the team is a very strong team and you're getting to put your name on listings, right? Now, not saying that number is perfect. I'm not saying that's for everybody. It's just something to consider. We have some more people that are commenting here. Jason says, find a team doing enough value to get a better split from the broker. Fantastic. That means, so what Jason is essentially saying there, those of you who are agents or new agents that are watching this, is saying, find a team that is kicking butt, right? In layman's terms, that they have enough power to go to the broker and say, hey, you know what, right now, you're giving our team 80-20. We'd like to be at 90 or 95-5 or 90-10 because we're bringing in a lot of business as a team, which that means that your percentage then goes up with the team as well, right? You're making more money at the end of the day. Jason also goes on to say, then jump on a team that started a hedge fund and all of the joint ownership in the team. That's a whole nother ball game, Jason. I think for another call, we'll dive into that, but I like where that's headed. Jenny says, was on a team or two, not my thing. I like to control my time and care for my clients on my own. I think that's a good aspect to look at. So as we talk about the numbers, let's move into talking about, Jaime, who joining a team is for and who joining a team may not be for, right? I don't know if you want to kick that off.
Yeah. No, so that's a great point. Who's it for and who's it not for? So really to break it down to as clearly as I can, if you're an independent person, and when I say independent, I mean more self-sufficient, that you either, maybe you don't know everything because nobody does, but you can go and find answers. And once you have the answers, you're able to implement through your own means, either through you doing it yourself or finding somebody else that's going to implement for you. Yeah. So if you're that type of person, I think that you outside of a team, that makes sense, including there's a certain type of brokerage which we talked about early on in the podcast. I think it was episode 2 or 3. So it would be a great time for you to go and 5-star review us over on Apple Podcast. If you're right there, that'd be a fantastic time to do that.
Thank you.
Going to the team aspect. So if you're more of a self-sufficient, you can figure things out on yourself and are not dependent as much for other people or with other people. I think that the team doesn't make the most sense for you because you're not going to feel right in that environment. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's true, right? As I look at, so whenever I join the brokerage, and I like to talk about from my perspective of my experiences. So whenever I joined, or whenever I joined the brokerage, they had a team that was just killing it. I mean, they were crushing it. They're fantastic, good people. And it was in the back of my mind that I could do that. But I came into the business knowing things that I think a lot of new agents don't know, which is one, how to market and how to talk to people and get them to want to have interest in buying a house or selling a house. So as a quote unquote self-starter, that knowledge kept me from joining the team, which meant I got to take home more of my own money. Now, with that being said, as a quote unquote coach, I don't ever really call myself that. Other people call me that. As somebody who's, helped people talk through business, what I will say is I've come across a lot of people who just don't know how to start a business or know how to find clients or know how to talk to clients. And then in that instance, when you're that type of person or have that personality or don't have the knowledge, I agree with you, Jaime. That's the type of person you want to join a team, or that's the type of personality, if you are that is probably good for you to join a team, at least to start off with, and maybe assign a contract that's like 6 months so you learn enough. And then if you want to re-up for another 6 months or another year, then you can do that because you like the team so much. Or if you've learned enough, you move forward with your own business, kind of like Jenny was talking about. I like to control my own stuff. I know what I'm doing. I want to handle my own clients and not worry about the team. But if there's a good situation, for a team, move into it, right?
Absolutely. Joseph, as you're talking about the good situation, as you're talking about we were talking about the value add, I know how you feel about teams. I understand. I know how you feel about this, but if you absolutely, and as I'm asking this, I'm going to have to answer this as well because I hadn't thought about it until now. what would it take for you if I was recruiting you? Is that if I was a team leader, what would it take for me as a team leader in whatever brokerage out there for me to have a Joseph or a Joseph like agent?
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? Like, so you're saying somebody who knows how to market, somebody who knows how to get their own business and doesn't feel like they need a team, right?
But not only that, like, so yes, absolutely, but also somebody that can help me grow, help me and the broker and everybody else.
Yeah, I think that's where we start moving into what Jason was talking about, right? Like there needs to be some type of leverage for somebody who's my personality, my type of person who's very independent, doesn't like to give my money away, don't even like to give it to Uncle Sam, even though I'm writing a huge check this month. We want to make sure that, because we're business owners, we're business people, we're entrepreneurs, we want to make sure that we have access to whatever you have access to. Maybe the opportunity to grow into something, right? So for example, let's say that you said, Jaime, you ran a brokerage, right? And you're like, I also have a team. I want to be a part of that team, but I'm going to commit to you each transaction that you do, I'm going to give you a percentage of the business. That's going to be written in the contract. So if you bring in over 50% of the business for the team, and that's 50% of the income that the team makes, then for me as a business owner, as I look at that, I say, I want 50% of the team's income, right? Why should the team leader get it if the team leader's not bringing in money and I am, right?
Yeah.
But that's a very hard conversation for people to have, because most people are like, I just need to be a part of something. I'm like, if I'm a part of something, I better own part of it, right? And so that's how I look at things. So for me, that it's a very hard recruit for me whenever somebody comes to me, right? They're like, hey, Joseph, I'd like for you to be a part of this. And it's like, well, what can you do for me, right? I know what I can do for you, right? And so, I mean, obviously not speaking directly to you, but just in general, when people come to recruit me for stuff, it's like, I know what you're coming to me for. What can you offer me, right?
Yeah.
So that's the type of conversation if you're going to recruit somebody like me, you have to be ready for that, because I will ask a lot of questions and I will throw curveballs that most people won't throw, because I've been through all the sales stuff, right? I know how to talk to people and I know what people want. And it's a question of what can they do for me, right? So hopefully, I don't know if that answered your question or not.
No, that gives a good framework. And I think to really apply it to the audience as well, the difference is that you're able to back it up. I'm not saying that the audience isn't able to back it up, but what I'm trying to pull out is, there's different ways to approach that conversation, and that's certainly a way. Not everybody will be able to get away with that type of negotiation, but my answer would be very similar to yours. If I had to, do the LeBron James thing and take my talents elsewhere, that's what I would have to do. And before people think that like I'm just full of it, that's something that I've done in my previous career. So I was in healthcare. So whenever I joined the network of pharmacies that I was with, I took ownership. Of course, you're not going to be a majority owner, but when you're starting in an industry and you bring so much to the table, then you're justified in doing that. So that led into me being part of the ownership. So I got a percentage of that when I took my exit. Same thing with when we opened up a laboratory, then I was able to command a larger piece of the ownership without really expending my personal capital outside of the equity, the essentially working for that equity. So those conversations are all on the table, but really why I wanted to bring that up is because I feel that a lot of agents are not having that conversation, either because they don't necessarily know that that's possible, or maybe they're a little bit ashamed or afraid, or I don't know. I just feel that a lot of agents are leaving a lot on the table, and I just really not sure why that is.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are afraid to have that conversation. Well, let's use some examples, right? So we're talking now to mostly new real estate agents. There's some experienced agents. Obviously, you have Jason on the call who runs the team right now. But most people, and Jason can probably vouch for this as well, most people don't want to have that conversation as a new agent because you don't have anything to offer yet, most of them, right? You're getting in, you just got your license, you're like, oh, okay, what do I do next? I need clients. A team's going to give me clients, right? So I think that's why most people don't have that conversation. But after a year or two, like Jenny's talking about, like running your own show, even though you're part of a brokerage, is a good place to be. And then allowing yourself to be open to opportunities that will give you more money for your family, for yourself in the long run, right? Jaime, you and I talk about this often. We're talking about scaling production and having that type of team, that mentality. Whenever you run your own business, the idea is to start making money in your sleep, right? And once you can do that, then you are on the right track to financial freedom. And anybody who's a real estate agent, you have the ability to do that, right? Rental properties, growing an actual team, having your transaction coordinator doing everything, having a showing agent, having a listing agent, and then having a solid back office, all right? Like all these things that we're talking about are leading to making money as a business owner without having to be in the business every single day, right? So, I think a lot of people just aren't thinking that far ahead to have that conversation, right? But you should be at some point, year in, 2 years in, right?
No, I think you're right. I mean, I think that you're right. Is and really, I think that's not to really elevate ourselves more than we should. I think that this podcast and really the messaging and the way that we present things, I feel that it is helping people to not necessarily wake up, but in a way wake up in a way
open
to
eyes.
See what's possible. Now we do we have some fun and make fun of some companies and marketers and brokerages and pretty much offend everybody to ensure that we're never going to get a sponsor. But we're speaking things because we really don't have much to lose. What's going to happen? I mean, Are we going to get fired? No. I don't know who would fire us.
Ourselves.
Who is there to fire us?
That's pretty much it. Yeah, ourselves. I think you're right. We're opening people's eyes to what the possibilities are, right? And even myself, like as I think about where I came from as the business owner and where I started, I think anybody has the opportunity to do what I've done, right? I tell people all the time, whenever I first started, and luckily again I knew how to market and do these things, but at the time of starting my marketing business, we had over 300 clients in the first year, right, paying us. So if you think like that, technically I could have had a 300-person brokerage at the end of the day if I would have joined the brokerage that Jaime is a part of, right? And the majority of those agents would have done between somewhere near 6 figures if they just followed all the steps that we taught, right? So you do the math on that. Anybody, I think, has the ability to do it. They just have to believe in themselves, have their systems in the back end, and whether you're growing a traditional team or you're growing a virtual team, whatever the case is, anybody can go out there and just make a ton of money. At the end of the day, is what we're getting at. Most of the stuff that we talk about is preparing yourself for financial freedom, right?
Yeah. So when it comes to the real estate team, are there any questions we can address right now before we go into to another segment of the real estate team, Joseph?
I think we've covered things. If anybody has any questions about teams, if anybody has any questions about splits, we have to be careful talking about splits. Of course, it's only if you're talking about commissions direct on a specific contract. But if you have any questions about other people's splits, where they're getting them, like Jenny just commented, she's 100%. She gets 100% of her 100% of the transaction minus $300 for the transaction fee.
Great.
Which is considered 100% transact or 100% brokerage, right? And then Holly, Jaime, just so you have some context, Holly thought if she joined a boutique firm, she had to be a part of the team. So I think she was a little confused on what a team was. Holly, correct me if I'm wrong. But a team, at the end of the day, as defined by, I guess, most boards, is a team is a group of people within a particular brokerage that are splitting the business that they all do together. Versus a brokerage is a broker, even though they're a small firm, maybe they have 5 agents like Holly is talking about, doesn't necessarily mean they're a team, right? Because if they're not splitting everything together, then they're not a team. They're just a group of agents, and the broker, they're hanging their license with the same broker. Hopefully that defines things a little bit more.
Awesome. So when it comes to teams, I just want to throw out a few different, let's just call them incentives to join a team. You know, some things that you're going to hear. I think that would be beneficial for some newer agents, so they hear what they're going to be pitched or what they're missing out on in some cases. So one of the most common things that's offered for, you know, the power of many, a transaction coordinator that is often sold to the agent, like, hey, if you join the team, you can absolutely use our transaction coordinator. Sometimes they charge a small fee. Sometimes they are absolutely included in the additional commission that they collect from you as an agent. So a transaction coordinator is a very common one that gets, presented to the agent. And then they always do well, you can always leverage this transaction coordinator to get more business because there's always going to be somebody looking after the client. It's not something that you have to do. So that's one. Something else, really, as I'm thinking through all the different examples and as we wrote them down, it basically comes down to reducing your costs.
Yes.
They're banking on the fact that either you haven't saved enough money to allocate to this business venture whenever you started, and the fees add up. The fees add up from the MLS, the fees add up from the signs, the fees add up from printing, from all this stuff. So Joseph, I've been in conversations whenever I'm speaking with agents about their particular split, and one person really sticks out in my mind where they have a 50-50 split.
Mm-hmm.
So 50 they keep and 50% goes to the brokerage and the team. Mm-hmm. And the reason that they didn't want to move to a different brokerage into another split that was giving them a considerably high split was because they were able to print everything that they had. They were able to print anything they wanted at the office, and that the signs were provided for them. That was a reason for not moving over.
Are they good at math? Did you ask them that question?
Clearly they're not. Clearly they hated money. But it's that psychological thing, right? It's what's the saying? The devil known is, anyway, I shouldn't have brought that up, but it's they know what they have and they just tolerate it just enough and and aren't going to make the move. It's just looking at those items, they're so myopic, and you can realize that, I can realize that, most people can realize that.
Yeah.
But that's what has a lot of people moving over to, that big appeal of, hey, save a few money, save a few dollars. And that's how they're able to collect the 10, 20, 30% more on top of what the broker's already collecting.
Yeah, so those of you who are just joining the call, what we're talking about right now is the things that might entice you to join a team, right? So Chaim was talking about just now, they may throw things at you like, hey, we'll pay for your signs, right? Hey, we'll pay for part of your board fees. Hey, we will print anything that you want us to print, right? And some people will stick with the team because they're doing all those things, but not doing the math, and also going, you know what? It's not really worth the extra $15,000 that I would make to go print these signs myself. So you have to be careful. And if you're that type of person, that's okay. Right? Like if you want somebody to print everything for you, you don't want to worry about it. That's okay. You're okay with having somebody take $15,000 out of your check every year. That's fine. But the idea is that you have to be careful and look at the numbers yourself. Don't let anybody tell you what your numbers should be. Your numbers should be what you need them to be for you and for your family at the end of the day, right? And if you're looking at it that way, then you know what the smart decision is for yourself. But I don't think signs are worth an extra $15,000 or $20,000 out of your pocket, personally. You can hire
some really good signs.
Yeah, you can hire an assistant for that much. Just throw that out
For sure. Yeah.
Hi, Jason says 15K to learn real estate and make millions. Jason, if you have 10 agents that are making millions of dollars, by all means, I fully agree with you. But if they're not all making $1 million a year, then that's a different story. But again, it just depends on where you are, who the team is, right? And again, Jason, I want to be very clear. I'm not judging you. I'm just saying that not every team is doing what you're doing. So you have to be careful on telling people they should join a team. But if there's experience there, then obviously, sometimes, again, like we said, a team is for some people, a team is not for some people, as we've figured out here on this call, right? Jaime, anything else you want to discuss in regards to scaling the team and joining a team or not joining a team?
Looking through my notes here, Joseph, we hit the transaction team, we hit the real estate team. We kind of covered benefits of joining a team. We've covered, the personalities that would thrive at joining a team and which ones wouldn't. Let's see. I would say that if you're scaling going back into the actual production side of things, the most common path that I've seen for an agent that is doing a lot of transactions in a year, how they scale and they grow, has been getting a transaction coordinator for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then once they've exhausted those efforts, they go on to have some showing agents. So agents that are specifically geared towards showing buyers and really working the buyer leads. That's what I've seen most common. And then they're, as they continue to grow and continue to get to business, is having somebody solely dedicated towards the listings. So having a listing agent, somebody that goes in, dominates that type of the business. So when it comes to scaling and production, that's the most common route that I've seen being taken by agents out there. Have you seen something different? Does that kind of ring true for what you're seeing out there?
So you're saying, say that the last part one more time. If they're doing what specifically?
So scaling their production. So those agents that are looking to go beyond the however many transactions that they're doing, their natural progression is getting a transaction coordinator or somebody that's going to help with the back end, then going into the showing agents. So getting agents that will help their buyers out so they don't have to focus on that. And then lastly, round it off with a listing agent, somebody that focuses on the listings, and then they continue to grow and, build up that team. That's the progression that I've seen from increasing their production.
Yeah, I think that's a very common space to go into, right? Is going transaction coordinator first. It's funny you talked, I think 2 calls ago we talked about, ways to make more money as a real estate agent. And you and I have a conversation to have with you after this. It'll be really interesting about transaction coordinating team that we already started. But anyway, I think that is called leveraging, right? If you are a business owner, you learn to leverage time, right? Other people's time, right?
Yep.
People who make a lot of money leverage other people's money, right? So we're talking about leveraging time here. So as a transaction coordinator comes into play into your business, the idea is that you're not paying that person unless the transaction closes, which means then you have money to pay that person, which is as far as a business model is concerned, is like top notch, because you're not spending any money until you have money. Most people spend money to get into the business that they don't have, put it on a credit card, do whatever they need to do to get started. But that helps you cut the cost. So yes, I think that's a natural progression. Get a transaction coordinator, and then you get a showing agent, right? Because that's, of course, if you're doing enough business. And then from there, you get a listing agent, and now you're sitting at the top. And then you have your full back office and everything that's running everything for you, right? And I think that's most businesses, right? It's leveraging other people's time so that you can make more money. And of course, they're making money at the same time, right?
For sure. So Joseph, I think now is a good time for the dismount. Do you have any closing thoughts that we can leave the good people with as we wrap up the perfect real estate team? It's not what you think it is.
Yeah. I think going into this call, I had ideas that I wanted to share with the folks who would watch this now live and on the replay. And that's, you have to make the decision for yourself what you want to do. But at the end of the day, you need to make sure that you're putting people in place that are going to help you grow your business. And you have to also have the idea that it's a scratch my back, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. It's really, I'll scratch yours first, then I hope that you scratch my back type of business, right? So the more you're helping, the more context you have, the easier it is to grow your business. And I also want to make sure that the final statement is make sure they're the right people, right? Make sure the right personalities that match your personality and the same work ethic. Because if they're not, then at some point that relationship's going to fall apart. But other than that, go grow your team, grow your own team, your transaction team, your contacts team, and then from there, if you decide, grow your actual real estate team, right?
Boom.
And grow your money.
Grow your bank account. That's most
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
The only thing that I can add to that, which there's not much to add to it, there's no right or wrong answer when it comes to the team, the aspect of joining a team or not joining a team. Understand, have that self-awareness of yourself, and then just make the decision that, to Joseph's point earlier, that benefits you, your business, your family. Relationships are relationships. That's fantastic. Brokers, being friends with brokers, being friends with team leaders, that's all awesome. But at the end of the day, they're not the ones that are responsible for bringing the income to the house. They're not the ones that are responsible for your family and your well-being. In a way they kind of are, but they're really not. You're the driver of that. So whether you join a team or don't join a team, just understand yourself, have that self-awareness, and make the decision what's best for your family.
Yeah. Always make the decision that's best for your family, not somebody else's family. That's for sure.
Boom. All right. Well, hey, thank you everybody for joining us for the Agent Lead Source podcast. As a reminder, 5-star reviews are most certainly welcome. If you don't have a 5-star to come to the table with, then don't come to the table at all. That is by definition not what we want. So please feel free to subscribe. We're all over. We're on the Apple Podcast, Spotify, Amazon Podcast, everywhere that you can think of. The Agent Lead Source podcast. This was fun.
Yeah. Thank you all for joining again. Hamed, thank you for your time. If any of you have questions about any of the stuff that we talked about, please feel free to message myself or Hamed. Probably best to message Hamed, because if not, my team will tell me and I'll get to you 24 hours later. But thank you all again. Thank you if you go leave a review, or if you want the link to go leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever we are, which is everywhere. Send us a message. We'll send you a link to leave a review, and we hope to see you on the next call. Bye, everybody.